How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Stargate Community Call will kick off in about 3 minutes on the hour, just waiting for Lamps to join the call, and a couple more guests will be joining. We have some special guests joining today from the Espresso team. If you look up in the Stargate Discourse Forum, you'll be able to see a proposal by the Espresso team proposing to integrate their hotshot consensus network into the Stargate protocol. It's a really interesting proposal and would speed up a number of our connected chains. So highly recommend having a look through, but we'll discuss that in more detail in just a moment. So stay tuned. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining the Stargate Community Call nice and early. Great to see some familiar faces here. Welcome, Exahash. Welcome, Mr. Degen, Jazz Champ, Isaiah from the Artemis team, Cosmo, Ray Beasy from Espresso, Britain, Layer Zero, Casper, Base, and now Stargate. It's great to see everyone here. Love to see it. We'll be kicking things off in just a moment, waiting for Lamps to join. Lamps has been very busy over the last couple days with lots of deployments going live. Stargate's launching on 3 or 4, as per usual. Stargate's launching on 3 or 4 new chains a week. Some very exciting announcements that I might go ahead and drop some alpha on during this community call coming up. So stick around, stay tuned. Craig is here to record the community call. And as mentioned in the Stargate Media channel, I am issuing new Stargate Discord roles to the community members that are participating in community calls and just generally speaking, spreading good vibes in the community. It's been a very successful kick off to the beginning of the year for Stargate. We will discuss some of the successes we've been seeing, some of the larger partnerships we've had, and some of the most exciting proposals that are currently up for discussion and have recently been passed through the snapshot. There we go. Mr. Angus Lamps has now arrived. Welcome, sir. GM. Great to see some familiar faces in the audience today. We've got a lot of super exciting announcements and proposals to discuss. Welcome, everyone. I will now kick us off and let's get started. So welcome to the Stargate Finance Community Call, where we discuss proposals and ideas that will help shape and govern the Stargate protocol. Feel free to join the conversation on stage anytime you have a question by clicking on the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. This is a call where we get together as a community to discuss ideas and topics that help shape the future of Stargate. Any discussion around digital assets should not be construed as investment advice or recommendation. Please remember to do your own research on any topics discussed, and please remember to consult your own advisors. Stay safe out there. All right, so we've got a pretty packed agenda for today. We have some special guests, and we have a bunch of exciting proposals to look through together. I'll get right into it and start us off with the elephant in the room. A recent announcement went up in the main announcements channel, sharing some information that the Stargate protocol has now reached over $1 billion in TVL, in total value locked. This is a major achievement and important milestone for the Stargate community. This has a number of implications that we can dive into over the next couple minutes and discuss as a community. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat or even raise your hand and come up on stage, and feel free to ask. So what actually led to this TVL surge? Well, recently Stargate embarked on a joint effort with a number of protocol teams, including Layer Zero, of course, Royco, Enzo Finance, and Berachain. This was a joint effort called Boyco. Berachain like to put a B, if you haven't noticed, at the beginning of every single DApp and protocol that they launch within their ecosystem. So Boyco essentially was a pre-deposit protocol that we've discussed a number of times as a community. And Stargate was responsible for enabling the transfer of large amounts of capital through Boyco into Berachain on day one to boost their ecosystem with day one liquidity. It achieved this using Hydra, which is a well-known feature of the Stargate V2 protocol that's had extremely great success over the last 9 months since it launched as part of V2. It's now on 27 chains, and as I mentioned just when this community call started, we push Hydra to a number of chains every week, and we announce those in the recap at the end of each month. So to give you guys some specific numbers, Boyco was a fantastic success, and Stargate enabled the transfer of $323 million worth of USDC into Berachain, alongside 168,385 wrapped ETH, right? And that is 438 million, just shy of $500 million worth of wrapped ETH. So together, it's just over 700 million US dollars worth of two major assets in the crypto space that Stargate enabled transferred into Berachain. So a truly great success, and essentially why this is super interesting for us is this is now protocol locked liquidity, right? So these assets are now locked into the protocol on our pools, and they are being put to use and are productive now within the Berachain ecosystem. Some of the community members here know that Boyco has a 90-day lockup mechanism whereby these assets can't leave Boyco for 90 days. This was to, amongst other things, prevent farmers from, withdrawing liquidity on the way out. Even if they were to do so, not a problem for Stargate, as we charge a fee on the way down with Hydra. So we are sort of strapped up in all the different scenarios here. But I wanted to ask Lamp, since we have him here on the call, what are the most interesting implications of this surge in TVL and the success of Boyco and having all this protocol lock liquidity with Hydra? I remember we discussed briefly switching off farms and sort of gradually turning down emissions for the Stargate DAO, such that less STG token emissions were coming out of the treasury. Is there any updates there that we could share with the community?
What does it mean for Stargate to have all of this liquidity? The kind of narrative that we tried to push with Stargate and Hydra is that with Stargate V1, there was a certain amount of liquidity that was required on the protocol to enable value transfer between different chains. And I think the reason why a lot of bridges have moved away from Stargate's architecture is that it is quite difficult to sustain a high level of TVL because of the need for incentives or the need for grants, things like that. Also, just difficult to have a lot of liquidity locked into a bridging protocol. And so the concept behind Hydra was that we could use the liquidity kind of within these canonical bridge contracts to actually facilitate movement of assets between other chains. And so the goal was always with Hydra to offer these canonical bridges for day one partners who they need a liquidity bridge on their chain. And when those assets get locked in the pools, Stargate can have those assets in the pools and use the credits of those. Obviously, the capital is not actually being used, but use the credits to kind of facilitate the movement of assets between other chains. Stargate has been live with Hydra for a couple months on a lot of different chains with varying kind of success levels, with varying levels of TVL. And I think what's really, really exciting over the past couple of weeks is that Berachain had a very successful launch and also had this Boyco program that you just outlined that generated a whole bunch of TVL for Berachain, for the protocols within Berachain, but also for Stargate. And so what this unlocks for Stargate is a whole bunch of liquidity that now sits in the pools, which again, Stargate can use to facilitate transfers. It means incentives can finally be turned down on the Stargate protocol for the first time in 3 years, which we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks. But also because, as you said, Boyco is now locked up for 90 days, that is a solid 3-month period where Stargate can really focus on kind of generating deep liquidity across the chains that it offers today, both to and from Bearer chain, but also between all of the other chains. And something that we've been able to see now that Stargate has some pretty deep liquidity in these most popular pools is that Stargate is facilitating transfers of a much larger size than it typically was before. Most of the regular transactions, or most of the kind of large transactions that we used to see on Stargate, were of the order of a few $100,000. But now Stargate is very regularly enabling bridge size of between kind of $1 to $5 million because it is now available. And so I think this sets Stargate up really, really well for not only whales who are looking to move capital around, but also institutions that may be looking to kind of balance some of their treasuries or some of their portfolios through Stargate. So I think all in all, just a very exciting time for Stargate and a real like proof of success with Hydra.
Brilliant. Yeah, super exciting to see, especially on those larger transaction sizes. I had a conversation with a close community member earlier, and they mentioned how they were watching like a hawk, just watching over our overview page and looking for those large transactions as they came through Stargate. It's something that
Yeah.
I've expressed a couple times, but there's no other solution in the space that could sort of facilitate that level of frequency of that much size cross chain. And I think that's a testament to the power of Hydra. And as I always like to say, the fact that Stargate's more than just a bridge and actually becomes more of a liquidity network as Hydra expands to, over 27 chains now.
Yeah, it's super, super fun to follow the overview page and kind of sort by size and just look through. I'm looking at it now, for example, the top four largest transactions out of the most recent ones are from Ethereum to BNB chain and from Arbitrum to BNB chain, all between kind of 400,000 and $1 million. And that has nothing to do with Bearer chain. None of those chains are Bearer chain, but the fact that we now have the liquidity means that those transactions are possible. So really exciting, and it is exactly the point that we've tried to speak about before when people talk about different different bridging architectures. This is the architecture that enables the most size at like a decent speed. And I think a lot of the other architectures kind of focus on retail volume that Stargate can also facilitate and can also now kind of expand into now that this liquidity problem is not solved, but certainly certainly looking good for the future.
Absolutely. Getting close to the end game there. So very exciting to see Hydra expand. Wanted to quickly touch on another very exciting event that's coming closer for the Stargate community. A couple members have been speaking about it in various channels within the Discord, and that is namely the end of vesting unlocks. There is some available information on this in the documentation. I think specifically user docs, the initial original V1 user docs on our docs pages. And you would be able to see here that the vesting unlocks are coming up in March. And a couple community members were wondering like what the implications are of these vests being completed and what effects this might have on the Stargate token and community generally speaking. Can we speak on that, Labs?
Yeah, I won't touch too much on what I think the implications for the token are. I think I'll let people do kind of their own thinking. But to your point, the Stargate protocol launched exactly 35 months ago, so just under 3 years ago. With the initial token launch, there was an allocation both to investors and core contributors that vests with a 1 year cliff and 2 years of unlocks. And that final unlock is happening in March on the 3 year anniversary of the protocol. And so the entirety of the token that needs to be unlocked will be fully unlocked, which is always an exciting moment for a protocol. You've seen a lot of the kind of, if you want to call it DeFi 1.0 protocols like Aave and MakerDAO that kind of achieve this point where there's no more issuance of the token. And it really just creates a healthy state for the protocol. Additionally, as we were just touching on, the only quote unquote locked tokens that are sort of left are the ones within the DAO treasury, which typically are used for incentives, or at least have been over the past 3 years. As we were just touching on, hopefully those incentives will be few and far between and only when really needed with the success of Hydra and the amount of capital locked in the protocol. So definitely an exciting couple of months for Stargate with some changes to kind of the way that the token supply has been moving and flowing, and yeah, we'll see where that gets us.
Yeah, that actually leads us nicely into one of the first proposals that we can speak about today before we move into Espresso's proposal. I'm aware we have Ray Beasy, very special guest. Shout out to Ray Beasy for joining. If you actually raise your hand whilst I go through the Treasury consolidation proposal, and we can get you up on stage. There we go, fantastic. Very quick with it. Essentially, okay, you know what? Let's go straight into the Espresso proposal, that we can talk about the Treasury consolidation proposal just after. Hi, Ray Beasy. How are you? Good to have you here.
Good, good. Thank you so much for inviting me on stage. And yeah, great to sort of touch on the espresso proposal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll just run us through a little bit of an overview with this proposal. So the proposal, Stargate integration with Espresso Network, is the title. Community members can find it up on the discourse. Went up on February the 6th, so about 6 days ago, just under a week. Super exciting proposal, basically requesting for Stargate to integrate with the Espresso Network. This would enable bridging from supported chains, i.e. chains that are supported by both Stargate and the Espresso Network, to basically just become much faster. So Espresso provides reorg protection to rollups, so that applications like Stargate can know within seconds that a bridging transaction is guaranteed to eventually be finalized on the L1. I was speaking with Ray Beasy about this earlier the other day, and it's we have Ethereum as this sort of the source of truth, this L1 that like powers all of these applications and layer twos to be created and ecosystems to expand. But some of these applications lose the security properties that the truly decentralized layer one has, right? And so what Espresso does is they basically allow L2s and dApps that are created across these L2 ecosystems and even app chains and L3s to inherit some of these security properties without having to wait for the long periods of times that might be as a result of the finality going to the layer one. Ray Beasy, it would be great to hear a little bit more from your perspective about the proposal and what you think the Stargate community should be focused on here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much just for giving a great overview of the proposal in general. I think like to quickly touch on, I think like the proposal that we currently have, and I think also maybe potentially even if this proposal does pass, like future proposals that we'd love to make to Stargate, and how we'd love to sort of envision like a partnership between Stargate and Espresso going forward, is that I think currently like what sort of Henry sort of alluded to is like essentially right now with Stargate currently like the sort of main sort of like barrier that we're trying to overcome with Espresso is that instead of having to rely, I think, purely on sort of the DVN and Espresso and like essentially the sequence of pre-comps as well, by leveraging the Espresso network, now you're sort of getting access to this sort of like BFT-backed consensus protocol that essentially is sort of leveraging the security of the L1 to sort of not only sort of get this additional sort of safety confirmation, but also get it in a quicker fashion as well. Whereas like currently right now, we're sort of like targeting between like 2 to sort of like 8 seconds. However, in the future, with some future upgrades to how we sort of implemented this consensus protocol currently, this should be getting down to around like 1 to 2 seconds eventually. So I think like for most bridging use cases, I think that's definitely much faster. And in general, how we're sort of like growing out the chains that we're currently working with in the proposal that we sort of outlined, the first chain that we have that's currently live, that's also a chain that Stargate is integrated, is currently Rari chain right now. There are some other chains that we're currently sort of looking to integrate or currently integrating right now that are also on the list as well for Stargate. So a couple notable ones being like Plume and Ape Chain, and then as well Superposition. And right now, I think for us, the reason why I think, as you kind of notice, a lot of these chains are currently in the Arbitrum Orbit ecosystem is that that's the current ecosystem that we're currently supporting as of right now. However, I think as well, I think I saw some questions in the Discord about like supporting optimism, supporting base, and vice versa. Like eventually as well, like the Arbitrum ecosystem is not where we're going to stop. We're eventually going to support sort of the OP stack, Polygon CDK, Elastic Chain, and ideally we want to sort of basically work with any rollup essentially in the space. So like very much uniting all of Ethereum together.
Wonderfully put. Thank you for the comprehensive overview of the proposal. There's been some comments from key community members up on the discourse. I linked it in the chat. So highly encouraging all community members to go leave some thoughts there, even if it's less technical or you want to go super technical, there's room for both. And the Espresso team are truly very welcoming and happy to explain these things. I've asked a bunch of questions myself, and it sounds like the Hotshot Consensus Protocol sounds like a really interesting toolkit to speed up, as Ray Beasley said, bridging on chains like Rari Chain at first, and then further chains like Plume, which would be super interesting. I believe the Plume TGE is actually coming up in the next couple of weeks, by the way. And then Superposition and Ape Chain, lest we forget Ape Chain, the one and only Ape Chain. Awesome stuff. Thanks for coming up, Ray Beasley. Anything else, or are we good to move on here?
I would love to give my 2 cents. I think it's so fascinating. We find ourselves in a lot of discourse on Twitter and on panels and things about kind of intent-based versus message-based bridging. And the reason that intent-based bridging was always because the reason why it exists was always because it was faster and cheaper than message-based bridging. And with the advent of Stargate V2, I feel like the fact that it was cheaper no longer was really the case. Stargate V2 and the bus mechanism was always kind of cheapest on some of the aggregators. And now we're really seeing Stargate get a little bit faster. And something like this, Espresso's proposal, I think would be very, very fascinating to follow for Stargate, because if bridging transactions on the Stargate protocol, a message-based bridge, were able to get down to the 1-2 second range, then there really is nothing holding Stargate back from taking all of the market share within bridging. So I find this proposal fascinating. I think Espresso built something really cool here.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much as well, Angus.
Thanks, Ray Beasley, and thanks to
Thank you, guys.
the team. Yeah, fantastic. Great to have you guys on board. Alrighty, we'll be moving on now to a next proposal that's gone up. Actually, this proposal was passed. It was approved previously last week by the Stargate DAO, and this was the initial treasury consolidation proposal. Now, we discussed this on the previous community call, so if anyone wants to catch up on the details of what was outlined in the treasury consolidation proposal, I'd recommend you check out the recording in Stargate Media. Today, just this morning, the first step, essentially, in consolidating the treasury, as outlined in the initial proposal, has gone up in the discourse. This proposal is called Deploy USDC Honey as a liquidity pool on BeraSwap. It's a fast-track proposal in the discourse, meaning got to get there quick to add your comments and thoughts, because it will be up in the snapshot sooner rather than later for voting. So just to provide a little bit of an overview here, and then Lamps, it would be great if you could give us some more detail on the DeFi strategy and thinking behind this proposal. So this proposal outlines a recommendation for the Stargate DAO to allocate $5 million worth of USDC, which is of protocol-owned liquidity, into the USDC Honey LP liquidity pool on BeraSwap. The intention here is to further grow the DAO's protocol locked liquidity, something we touched on briefly earlier. After all, Berachain, this is happening on Berachain, which is a Hydra chain, and also enabling the DAO to earn yield in a reasonable way. Yes, Lamps, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about the thinking behind this proposal.
Yeah, 100%. So again, to give some historical context on what the DAO's treasury has historically been used for, within Stargate V1, there was kind of two places that the DAO had allocated its treasury. One was within STG USDC positions across different DEXs, across different chains. So for example, $10 million of STG USDC held within Curve for a long time, which obviously facilitates a lot of the kind of STG buying and selling on mainnet and some SexDex arbitrage. The DAO has earned some good fees on that over the years. And then roughly 8 or 9 positions across a lot of different chains: SushiSwap on Polygon, Trader Joe on Avalanche, now known as LFJ, PancakeSwap on BNB chain, all kind of good partners of the DAO where Stargate has held some STG liquidity. And the other place that the DAO had allocated some of its protocol and liquidity was within Stargate V1 pools. And the goal here was that if Stargate held, for example, $50 million of assets within its own pools in USDC and ETH, then that was $50 million that Stargate didn't need to incentivize. And so that's roughly, if you want to say kind of 10% annualized every year, that's roughly $5 million saved for the DAO every year, which of course is great savings. With Stargate V2 and the design of Hydra, there's a very interesting thing that can happen. So as Henry mentioned, last week there was a proposal to kind of consolidate the treasury. There's still a lot of capital held within V1, which isn't used anymore. And so should at the very least be moved over to the V2 pools. But because of Hydra's design, there's a very interesting play that the Stargate DAO could do, which is instead of just depositing USDC into Stargate V2 pools, the DAO can bridge USDC from Ethereum into Berachain, for example. The underlying capital then gets locked in Stargate's pools. And so the initial goal is achieved where Stargate puts free capital into the pools. But Stargate now also has $5 million available on Berachain to earn yield from. And obviously, with the historical kind of risk profile of the DAO, an idea that we thought of would be to simply deposit stablecoin liquidity in the form of USDC and Honey onto BeraSwap, which is the native DEX on Berachain. For those that don't know, Honey is just kind of like a USDC wrapper. It is the Berachain native stablecoin. So what this would mean if Stargate were to approve this proposal is that not only would there be $5 million added to Stargate's pools, which is kind of the mandate of the previous proposal, but also Stargate would now be earning upwards of 20% on this $5 million position in kind of free capital, both through LP fees, but also primarily in the form of BGT, which is the Bearer Governance Token. So I won't go into the details of how Berachain works and what proof of liquidity is, but the TLDR is that if you hold positions within certain vaults that are approved by the Berachain governance, then you earn additional yield in the form of BGT, which can eventually be sold out to burned to Bera, or can be used to kind of accumulate more BGT and accumulate more incentives. And the Stargate DAO has historically been very, very savvy at accumulating some of these positions on, for example, Velodrome or Aerodrome that has earned incredibly well for the DAO's treasury. And so I think this is the first foray into exploring what depositing liquidity on a Hydra chain could look like and earning some additional capital on the Stargate DAO's treasury.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I just dropped the link for the BGT token dynamics in the chat. Highly recommend people spend some time reading through that as well, because as we've mentioned a couple times, Berachain is attempting to experiment with some very innovative, novel sort of DeFi mechanisms and strategies, right? Proof of liquidity is something that hasn't been done before, and if successful, could really change or could be one of the core innovations that we see in this cycle for the DeFi space. And Stargate is obviously right there to power them and enable the canonical bridging of USDC and wrapped ETH into that ecosystem. So yes, wonderful stuff. So that would be the sort of first phase of the Treasury consolidation proposal, and really encouraging community members to engage with this roadmap and leave their comments, questions, and thoughts in either the discourse or in Discord. Feel free to ping myself and the rest of the team at any time to discuss why we're thinking about doing things this way and how the DAO could sort of make their own proposals, so forth and so on.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
and I just wanted to recall out the fact that this was put up under the fast track proposal just because the Berachain ecosystem is quite new, and I think the Stargate Foundation has been looking at something like this since the documentation came out on Berachain, and it's kind of become quite clear how successful this could be if kind of acted on quickly. And so the intention isn't to rush something through without discussing it. It was very intentionally put up before a community call so that we could discuss it and hopefully generate some discussions around it. But I think the sooner that the DAO is able to act, the better in this case.
Very nice. Cool. Well, that covers the current proposals up for discussion and the currently passed proposals that went through the snapshot governance process. Maybe it would be good now to just recap some of the protocol updates. We saw a number of new integrations, and we have a number of further new integrations coming over the next 48 hours. Super exciting partnerships lined up, which are going to be live on the front end over the next 48 hours. So stay tuned. We will see Gnosis. Gnosis chain will have an ETH and USDC pool. That was approved by the DAO a couple months back and finally is going up. Gnosis is, one of the oldest teams in the space. They built early on top of Ethereum, and they're well known for their safe multi-sig wallet, which is a very handy tool for, storing your assets in a extra secure and safe manner. the Gnosis team have agreed and have deployed or will be deploying capital to seed these pools with $2 million of ETH and $2 million of USDC. So stay tuned and check the front end imminently for bridging into and out of the Gnosis chain ecosystem. What's more, we had Flow EVM go live last week. Flow EVM is also quite an old player in the space, but old and gold. They have a full Hydra suite of assets enabled for bridging through Stargate's Hydra. That would be Hydra USDC, USDT, and wrapped ETH. Highly recommend people go check out the Flow EVM ecosystem and bridge in through Stargate. Now, I wonder if I'm able to drop some alpha here. Story mainnet will be going live over the next 24 hours. I think the mainnet has been announced for the 13th of February. Story is probably one of the most highly anticipated chains of this cycle, alongside Berachain, which went live last week, and Abstract, which went live the week before. So Stargate was there for Abstract A, it was there for Berachain B, and not C, but Stargate was there for Story. So it's great to see all of these chains adopting Hydra and really using us as their canonical primary bridge. It's truly exciting for the Stargate community to be able to have the go-to front end to move major assets such as USDC, wrapped ETH, and USDT into these ecosystems. Just seeing someone say they moved Pengu from Sol to Abstract passed smoothly. Fantastic to see. And that actually reminds me, we had 23 OFTs go live on Berachain last week. Gustas, ecosystem and operations lead at Stargate, was working night and day to make sure that all of these OFTs were listed. So big shout out to Gustas there. And yeah, so incredible to see all of these OFTs live on Berachain, quicker, faster, stronger, and harder than any other ecosystem in the space, enabled by Stargate and the Omnichain fungible token. Alrighty, just to be clear, there's a number of marketing assets and materials that we've put out for people to check exactly which assets, which OFTs are available for bridging. So I can share those in the channels in Discord if you just ask me, and I can share those with you guys. If not, check the Twitter, follow the Twitter, comment on our posts. And Stargate recently hit 300K followers, and we are not slowing down. We'll be aiming for 1 million and upwards from there. So great to have everyone here as early community members. Alrighty. Let's have a look what else I had on the agenda to discuss with the Stargate community today. Now that we've covered all the major protocol updates, integrations, and proposals, I wanted to touch briefly on Supernova. Now, I know the community's been speculating and talking a bit about what Supernova is. We've recently reached about 100 issuances of the Supernova role. Supernova is supposed to represent the beginning of a new era for the Stargate community. I want people that are active and interested in participating in community calls and winning new roles and potentially some exciting rewards in the future, whether that's Stargate's Genesis merge collection or a future community fund to really bootstrap the ecosystem and leverage Stargate's fully composable nature. So we've got Supernova as a role there, and then we've also got Starkitect. I'll be putting out some more content over the coming days to add some color to these new roles and give some more explanations as to what they are. But really and truly, if you get rolled up and find yourself with a Supernova or Starkitect role, just know that there will be some perks and some benefits going forward into the future. I will be announcing and sharing more there soon. Alrighty. Well, it's been a busy one. That was a jam-packed half an hour of updates, upgrades, and great discussion with some interesting special guests and the core team at the Stargate Foundation. We did have some questions that went up in the questions for this community call.
I have alpha. Can I give alpha?
Alpha? That's crazy. Let's hear it.
Yesterday there was a very big announcement that came out from Layer Zero, amongst other participants in the Layer Zero ecosystem, including Ton and USDT Zero and Athena, announcing that Layer Zero as a blockchain is now, Layer Zero as an interop protocol is now live on the Ton blockchain, which means that Ton is now connected to all of the others Layer Zero ecosystems. What this came with was a deployment from the USDT Zero team that enables USDT movement between Ethereum, Tron, Ton, and Arbitrum. This is the first time, at least to my knowledge, that there's a decentralized bridging protocol built between Ton and Ethereum, but also Tron and Ton, and is really, really excited. Really, really exciting to see. There have been many conversations that we've had for teams looking to move capital to and from Tron, to and from Ton. I think the Ton ecosystem generally has really been pretty hyped up, and part of that announcement was that Stargate will be going live, or this protocol will be going live on Stargate's front end, and that is coming very soon. And the goal for us here is to make sure that anyone who is looking to move capital between Ton and Ethereum, or Ton and Tron, or Tron and Ethereum, of which there are many large users, they are all heading to Stargate's front end to do this. And so we're very excited to get it live. As I said, there's a lot of people who have been waiting to do this, and obviously we've known that it's been coming because we've been working on the integration. But we're very excited to get that live, and I think we'll drive a lot of value to Stargate's front end, and will also do a lot of volume. So very excited to see that go live, and you should hopefully hear some more about that over the next hour or two.
Absolutely. As soon as that's live, I will be sharing that with the community in the announcements channel. So get the reactions locked and loaded and ready to fire up that announcement. That's super exciting. That's tons of alpha. Fantastic. You know, it feels like the Stargate protocol is really becoming the bridge for everything. Maybe we could call it the everything bridge. We're really just, first and foremost, we're always there before anyone else to enable the movement and the transfer of digital assets between new chains, old chains, whatever it is, what have you, Stargate's there, Hydra's there, and the liquidity network doesn't stop expanding. There's so many possibilities for where we can go from here. You know, we've got Espresso on the call today. They spoke about their hotshot consensus protocol integration with Stargate to speed up, you know, the layer 3, the Arbitrum chains. You know, we could speed those up to a matter of seconds, which is super exciting. We've got Isaiah here from the Artemis team. Shout out Isaiah. You know, the Artemis team are building a Stargate dashboard. Actually, you know what? I'll drop the link for the first look at the Stargate data dashboard. They are hard at work building this out in real time. So any feedback is welcome to boost their effort there. They've been spending night and day, countless hours building the Stargate protocol data dashboard in Artemis. This, in my view, is going to become the sort of go-to site for all the key metrics about Stargate. You know, we're going to be able to see things like the treasury analytics, what's going on with Stargate DAO treasury, where are the assets being put to use, what yields are they generating, over which time horizons. We're going to be able to see other key metrics like, you know, holders, how many holders, how much Stargate tokens are they holding, these sorts of things, right? It's all on chain, it's all available data, but we're going to have a sort of centralized place to see and filter through all of that super exciting information. So shout out to Isaiah and shout out to the Artemis team. Any feedback and questions, welcome to put those in any of the channels. Ping me and we'll get a direct line to the Artemis team as that goes live over the coming weeks and into next month. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at some of the questions that the community put up before the community call today. There've been quite a few comments in the chat, so I've got to scroll up here. Yeah, we had a question from Sendok. USDT 0, as Tether transitions USDT to an OFT, wonder if we're able to remove USDT liquidity pools / farms. Lamps, you able to field that one?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is definitely beneficial to Stargate. So how it looks today is that Stargate has USDT pools on a couple different chains. They probably do in total about 5 to 8% of Stargate's volume. So definitely the lower side of both ETH and USDC. And for example, recently the Arbitrum USDT asset was call it upgraded to an OFT, and so can now be used as an OFT. Which means that liquidity pool is no longer needed to Sendok's point, and so therefore, again, Stargate can kind of reduce the amount of incentives it's given out. Something that we're building at the moment is also the ability to kind of perform a multi-hop transaction, and so you could connect a USDT 0 transaction to a Stargate transaction such that to the user, it all feels like one, but it's actually using a mix of both OFTs and Stargate in the background. Really just to provide that better user experience and to make sure that the USDT asset across ecosystems feels like one. So it's a really good question from Sundoc. Yes, we will be able to, the protocol will be able to reduce the amount of incentives, but still maintain that ability to kind of bridge across any of the chains that you want to get to with all the complexities under the hood.
Fantastic. I was just looking through the other questions that were posted by Exahash and a couple others in the questions channel before the call. Looks like we actually covered most of them. But if there are any other questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. Actually, I had another thought. There was a graphic that went up the other day on this concept of mindshare, and I saw that Stargate was completely dominating mindshare. I don't know if anyone has it handy, but if not, I could grab that and drop it in the channel later for community members to see. But effectively, mindshare captures, there's this system called Kaito, and it captures who is dominating the attention on crypto Twitter. And it was great to see Stargate and Layer Zero, its close partner, dominating upwards of 25% of the mind. Oh, there we go. Lamps has just dropped it in the channel. That is some pretty nice statistics to see there. Got Zero up with 20%, Stargate up with 16.25. And then we got Stargate up with 26%. Have a look, guys. That's very exciting information to see. Now, I'd like to say that, community members inside the Discord, if you guys are active on Twitter, on crypto Twitter, feel free to, follow me. I'll follow you guys back, and let's sort of expand the omni-chain vision and capture mindshare over there. That can feed nicely into the supernova role. And, as we ramp up the marketing efforts at the Stargate Foundation, really growing our presence online across all the social media platforms, I think it'd be great if we move as a unit there. So super exciting stuff to see. Look at the reactions there. Wow. Fantastic. Stargate community on top. Now it's only the beginning and we've got a lot more coming. So stay tuned. Be active, drop questions, comments, thoughts. Stargate Alpha, more alpha, as Gustav says. That's what we like to see. I'm very excited, as you can probably tell by my tone today. I'm very grateful to be working with the Stargate community members. It's great to see such a big audience here today. Any questions, if you ever need me at any time, feel free to ping me in any of the channels or even DM me, and we can talk about all this. So I think that brings us towards the end of this community call. Remember, lots of proposals up. The Treasury consolidation proposal went through. Espresso's up. Drop your comments. Let's expand the protocol and shape the future together. I'll let the discussion continue on in the chat here on StageGate. But if no one has any other questions, I think that brings us to the end of this week's Stargate community call. It is the 12th of February, 2025. Fantastic last couple weeks and last couple months for Stargate. OFT, OFT, OFT. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.